So I want to talk about the unit of analysis and research, and I want to use this really interesting scenario that we have right now, which is ChatGPT, and talking about the unit of analysis, comparing it to GPT-4. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Maslach. I'm an associate professor of innovation strategy and entrepreneurship. All right, so what is the unit of analysis? What are we really looking at? We use this all the time. What we're looking at is the particular agent or actor or thing that you are interested in actually looking at as a researcher, and the reason why you do this, right? So first of all, I'm going to take a step back and sort of think about this, right? If you're thinking about ChatGPT at this moment, right? It's a fairly interesting phenomenon. ChatGPT came out in the end of 2022. It's really taken off. Lots of people are using this. It's a really important artificial intelligence technology based on large language models. Right, so if you were comparing it with GPT-4 that has just come out in the last few months, you might look at a lot of different things, right? And that's what we're interested in. As researchers, you can look at everything around you in different ways, right? So your unit of analysis is the particular thing that you might be interested in at the same plane, right? At the same level. So if you're thinking of generational technology, for example, right? So ChatGPT, as far as I know, is kind of like a, the precursing version. They use part of it, GPT-3, and now they're building GPT-4. Now GPT-4 uses a much larger model. It's supposed to be a lot better, but then it doesn't have this interface that's built into it where you can communicate in the easy to understand way that ChatGPT has, right? So that's the sort of thing to think about. So with the unit of analysis, we might be interested in generational technology. So what we're thinking about is, how does that improve over time? And we're looking at generational technology across within that particular technology. But then you can think about the unit of analysis being, if you say generational technology, then you can think about other things, right? You can think about Windows XP, right? Going from Windows, is it NT to XP, this sort of generational stuff. You might also think about, okay, now we have this really cool technology. Another thing that you could be interested in is the actual people and how they interact with this really cool technology, right? And so ChatGPT makes, because it's got this sort of language component to it, NLP, natural language processing component to it, it's easy to communicate. And so you might compare, if your unit of analysis is how decision makers or how people or how actors interact, and the unit of analysis is the people when they're interacting with different technologies, you might look at this and say, hey, by looking at this particular unit of analysis, we could see across the people, right? Those are the people that we're interested in, how they actually interact with ChatGPT versus GPT-4, right? And you might notice, so I've been using both of them. GPT-4 doesn't work as good at this moment. It's still, even though it's a better model, it still produces kind of like not very good answers for me. So I end up using just a basic ChatGPT-4, and I think the reason is it's been trained more than ChatGPT than the GPT-4. So even though that I know it's a better model, it's not as robust for me, right? So if you were doing an analysis across many different people, it would be people interacting with those two different different models, and you would see how they would actually behave when they interact with them. So the unit of analysis in that case is the individual actors that are interacting with them. Now, because the world is full of layers, right? We can think of it as a hierarchy or a complex interaction of things. This matters because that allows you to look at the right layer, right? So what do I mean here? Well, another way that you can look at this, right, is if you were interested in the layer of the machine code, for example, that they use to build, or the computer programming code to build ChatGPT, that would be one level of analysis that you'd be interested in, right? And you'd want to look at that level of analysis. Then you can also look at, so you'd look at the code. What do they do with the code? You can also look at the organization. So OpenAI, for example, how are they interacting? How are they dealing with this all of a sudden fanfare of releasing ChatGPT? What is going on within the organization? What are the processes that are going on? Right, you can look at the API unit of analysis, right? So how are APIs being built into ChatGPT and as well as GPT-4? There's some APIs that are being built into that, right? Plugins, they call them. There's all these different levels that you can look at, and you can think about the societal change of what is happening because of this new amazing technology, this artificial intelligence technology, and how it's changing communication, right? So if you look at the society level, maybe it's the community, right? You might want to pay attention to how ChatGPT is popping up versus how GPT-4 is popping up in different communities. Which ones are they embracing? And so the unit of analysis in that case would be at the population level of the community itself, right? And you might think about how it's diffusing across different communities and the characteristics of those communities. Now, you also might be looking at the government level. There's been recent, in the last couple of weeks, people have been talking about going to the U.S. Congress, right? So some of these players, Sam Altman went to Congress, the government, and was asking them, hey, can we get some help here? So what you'd look at is a level of analysis, and the unit of analysis would be the different governments across different different countries, how they're interacting, what are they actually going to do. And so you're focused on that unit of analysis of what the governments or the institutions are actually doing. Right. Another thing might be even broader. You might think about how is it actually affecting, broader institutions, such as the family. So in this case, it would be, the unit of analysis you'd probably be interested in is the family unit itself, right? And the family unit across different locations. Where you can see the unit of analysis changes depending on what you're looking at. The sort of both the sort of theoretical thing that you're interested in, right, but also the level of analysis, the thing that is sort of the playing field of what you're looking at. And you can often think about it as you are just asking these questions. What is my unit of analysis? And as there's some repeated actor that comes up, that's often your unit of analysis, right? So if I say governments a lot, it's probably governments across many different governments. If I say decision maker, might be individuals, for example, that you're actually looking at. If I say, decision makers in the classroom, your unit of analysis might be teachers, right? You might be thinking about that a little bit more. And you can see it changes depending on what you're looking at, but it sort of gives you some clues as you're interacting with it, right? So as you repeatedly say the same terminology, or the same individual actors, you will get a sense of who those players actually are, and that's your unit of analysis. And the reason why you stick on the same unit of analysis, remember, the world is a big onion, right? You're peeling apart all these sort of different layers of an onion. It's very complicated, and there's not really a linear way to look at the world. Everything's just a big mess. Imagine the world being a big mess, complex system. And what you are thinking about is what layer, what part of the complex system that you're actually interested in, right? So the reason why you focus on that one part is because that rules out many different explanations in other domains, and you don't have to explain those as much because they don't make as large of effect, right? So yes, government matters if you're looking at decision makers. But if you're looking at decision makers in a very small period of time, and it's in an area, essentially government is fixed. So because government is fixed, it doesn't change anything in your analysis, and you're not going to get any confounds. You can basically rule that out. It's a way of, essentially, the way I look at it, it's a way of sort of controlling for things. It's a control variable in some sort of way of fixing what your unit of analysis is, so then you don't have to control for many other things, or you shouldn't have to, because the world is very, very complicated, and you shouldn't really have to pay attention to all those other things that are complicated and affecting the world around us. So hopefully this helps you out. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. And yes, ChatGPT, I want to sort of talk about this, is a wonderful tool. I use it on a regular basis, and you should get practice using this on a regular basis. GPT-4 is not there yet. It's still getting better, but it is not quite there in terms of the way that you can communicate it as freely and easily. It's still slower. The model is bigger, but I just don't think it's trained as well, so it generates some weird answers every once in a while. So just be careful with that one. If you're playing with it, you have to pay to get GPT-4. Well worth it, by the way, to pay that $20 a month. If you have the money to do it, highly recommend it. And you should be using this as part of your daily life at this moment. All right, take care. Have a wonderful day. Bye.